when I was in Syria, I had the experience I'll never forget. My commander, Orhan Bakrjayan, Nubarozanian, was a very famous guerrilla. He was an Armenian from Turkey. He fought in the Maoist guerrilla in Turkey. He went to Lebanon. He joined with the PFLP and with the Abu Nidal network. He fought against Israel. He was wounded. He served with Asala, the Armenian secret army for the liberation of Armenia. Afterwards, he fought against Azerbaijan during the first war in Nagorno-Karabakh, in Artsakh. He basically became, a colonel at the time. And he went back to the guerrilla and fought against Turkish forces for another decade, and then went to the mountains, where he was then sent into Syria to help with the defense of the northern cities against Daesh. And when I met him, this was a man that would have been a general in any other army. And he had the respect of every commander, even Syrian Arab army. They knew of him, of course, because he had been with the PFLP. And even the Iranians respected him. The Russians knew about him because he was with Monty Melkonian, who was the commander of the Armenian forces during the war in Artsakh. And when I was with him, he would sit with me and he was like a grandfather. When I finished eating, he would grab my plate and wash my plate. I would beg him not to do it. And he said, "Don't worry, it's my pleasure to do it." This was a man who had fought for 4 decades at that time in guerrilla war on multiple countries. And he would wake up every morning. I'll never forget, he would wake up 5 a.m. He would let us sleep in a little bit until like 5:30. He would start preparing breakfast. He would get us up. We would do our morning physical training. He would make breakfast for everybody, serve us. Afterwards, wash the dishes. And while we were doing training exercises, he had an old tattered copy of on contradiction, theory and practice, and another text I'm trying to remember. Those two were the ones I remember most vividly. And he would read them every day. Every day he would go back. He'd read them 1,000 times. He would read them, and he would always, I'll never forget when a Syrian family came to our base. Of course, we didn't know who they were. So he stopped us and he said, "This is the people. This is who we serve." He went out there. It didn't matter if somebody was going to blow him up. He said, "We serve the people regardless." And they would come and they said, "Look, we don't have sugar." He would give them stockpiles of our supplies, whatever we had. You want sugar? Take sugar. You need, we got some eggs? Take the eggs. And he was so beloved by everyone in that region. They all would have gone to war with him, for him, with him on the front lines. And they did. Many of their children who became teenagers and old enough, they ended up serving either in back capacities because they were too young, or on the front lines. And sadly, while I was there, he was martyred. And that man was a hero. PFLP actually released a massive tribute to him and made it into a poster. And he was emblematic. He's sort of who I aspired to be. Because even after all of that, the man could have looked like a Soviet general with however many medals. He would have got proud communist. How many wars did he fight in? How many operations was he in? Wounded multiple times. Spoke like 5-6 languages. But the most humble man, would never yell, would never scream, always very soft-spoken. And he really taught me what it meant to be a communist and what it meant to be a revolutionary. And I'll never forget him. I think about him all the time. I have his picture in my office, and I hope that I can one day be a 1% the man that he was. And that's how I think that we all should be. We all should look for those people that continue to inspire us, that lead a life that we think is worthy of emulation, is worthy of us, stepping into their shoes. And we should also do the same, and as best as we can. And I think that that's where you earn the trust of the people. Ultimately, that's where you earn the trust of the masses, and that's where people begin to put their faith in you. And when they put their faith in you, they are willing to ride or die, as we say. They're willing to sacrifice a lot. And so, not to be overly emotional or things like that. I feel myself, getting a little bit emotional. They're talking about him and this experience, but I think that for all of us, what we can do is, in any capacity, to continue to uphold the best of what it means to be a communist, and to continue to work tirelessly, ceaselessly, for the people and for the struggle. There's no alternative, comrades. There's no alternative for the world. We only have two paths: a path that is a world of dignity, of friendship, of peace, of cooperation, of solidarity, of sort of a humanity unified in its quest for the pursuit of all that is good in life. And we have a society that is constantly at war with itself, where people tear one another down for the scraps, and where an elite continue to govern and take all of the riches of the masses and immiserate the vast majority of the world's population. And I believe that we must struggle without end for the former, and we must continue to struggle to build that world. If we get there, I don't know, but that's not really our purpose. Our purpose is not to know whether we get there or not. Our purpose is to struggle, and if we get there, we'll know when we're there. We don't need to be teleological and all of a sudden start to get into all sorts of questions about end times, eschatology. Leave that to religion. Leave that to awaiting the Messiah. But we're not awaiting the Messiah. Look in the mirror. You are the one we have been waiting for. That's what I tell everybody. If you want to enact change, you only have to look into the mirror to see how that change comes about. So, okay, it's not high theory. It's not nice Marxist language from the documents, but I believe it's the essence and the core of what Marxism is ultimately looking for in human beings.